So hello, welcome back to Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order. Do not let us continue on from where we last left off. So, the NPA, as well as the NRA, are getting incredibly powerful. I don't know if there's going to be a coup when these hit 100. I think it's entirely possible, because it's going to be 3.3, at 94 point, like, they're almost at 100. So I've got a feeling, like, when they hit 100, like, something bad is going to happen. I mean, it would make sense, right? That something bad would happen when it hits 100%, but we shall see. We're going to focus more on the bandits. Yeah, 95, you're at 97. Sure, let's just do this. And now they're at 100. I don't know what this does when it hits 100, but we will find out because it is there. Okay. We'll finish up with you, and I guess after that we will do we'll do the anti-NRA tree. I mean, again, they're at 100. So I don't know. Because it doesn't actually say what happens when they hit 100. I mean, it's a negative 30% stability. Like, their modifier is maxed out, but I don't know if that actually does anything besides that. Okay. The feeling was clinging to his tracheas again, as he took yet another careless stroll along the familiar boulevard. Even though it was just a business trip, or so they say, he still felt somewhat obligated to cherish the rustling of Zhilang's leaves and the screeching of tires against the asphalt ground after all those years away. To wonder how this bustling hometown of his had even survived the nightmare 2 decades and more ago. Then again, he supposed a nightmare was a nice enough euphemism for reality. Nanjing stood, after all, barely 200 kilometers away. Yunnan smirked, yet his throat clenched. If the war had been a nightmare, then indeed he'd never woken up. The only difference being that his weapon is now a fountain pen instead of a rifle. Far too often he cried out in the heading, into the dark, for whoever was out there to wake up and see the absurdity of it all. Japanese marionettes atop the presidential palace, and far too often he had been silenced himself with the ink of his own bottle. Far too often the boys back in Chongqing had told him, with trembling voices and drenched foreheads, that this was for the good as much as himself as of the journal. And far too often he had stifled a laugh. The new Szechuan Daily used a pride itself on responsibility, on having a spine in the face of decadence. Where did it all go? The feeling was clinging to his trachea again. The feeling of suffocation. The smothered voices, the hollowness beneath the state-sponsored loudspeakers and the pan-Asianist banners, all the testaments of one undeniable, unconceivable truth. China was not free, far from it, and it remained a part to play for Liu, and what few like-minded compatriots out there to make her so. It was why he had reloaded Chongqing, in fact, to reconnect with them, to dedicate his life to anything that wasn't Wang Jinwei's propaganda machine. Liu's footsteps were picking up pace once more, where his path lay still ahead. There remained ears to talk to, until one day, hopefully, China will finally make herself heard. Good luck, Yunnan's really hard. I kind of figured that'd be the case, I'll be honest. Like I said, I think there's going to be like an 80-20% chance, 80-20 that we fail. And then maybe like a 15% chance that we barely scrape by. 5% that we somehow completely steamroll them. But I can't... That reality seems the most ludicrous of all. So I don't think that one's going to happen. But we shall see. We shall see. So again, I don't remember exactly what year the war actually starts. I think it's like 67, 68. But we'll find out. Bandits go down by 0. I mean, everybody's getting really threatening. Basically, other than the communists literally have no power. Everyone else, though, is extremely... You know what actually the problem is? The problem is I've not put any points as the police's, huh? I've kind of just, like, let them do whatever the hell they want. I just kind of realized that. You know what? Put 15 in each. Now, everybody's going to get a little bit weaker, which, I mean, I guess is reasonable. I mean... When you're at 100 and you're at 96, like, it's never going to go down to, like, not be threatening. focus, and discipline. The woods were silent, as they always were. That is why Sun Liren always came here to run the exercises. For it was a peaceful sort of silence, entirely unlike the country that supposedly ruled over these woods. Of course, more important than the background of his runs was that he should consistently run. It's not only to keep the physical body and fighting spirit in order, it's most importantly instill discipline. Discipline was something that no soldier, from the young to the old, could afford to miss out on. That was the lesson Sun had learned many times. Too often, the hard way. Unlike many of his fellow generals in the National Revolutionary Army, Sun had not yet faced with the choice of joining the collaborating puppet government or being imprisoned. Rather, Nanjing seemed to have contented itself with a sort of internal exile to the province of Guangxi. Although their actual control of the province was loose at the best of times, Sun did what he could to keep his end of the bargain and avoid stirring up unrest against the national government. After all, he didn't have to, but Nanjing did that themselves through the corruption and incompetence. If only he could straighten them out, with the same exacting discipline that he once expected from his soldiers, then perhaps life for the average person wouldn't be so unbearable. No matter. The Chinese people would seek justice one day, with or without the support of the government. For that reason, Sun had to stay in shape and continue to learn the latest military theories. Should he one day be expected to help out once more in China's fight for freedom, he had to do everything he could towards achieving that end. These are like the new songs, right? Like, these are definitely the new songs for the DLC. Okay, Ghost of the Past. Revanchism in Yunnan. Burma, the road towards danger. Send soldiers to the border. Contact Burma for cooperation. I mean, we have to do everything. One indivisible. Playing this focus will finish unification towards Yunnan and Guangzhou. And again, I'm not too sure which of these two we want to take. I don't know. We can evict him. Okay, wait. Is he the leader of Guangzhou? Yes. Okay. Are you, like, extremely pro-Japan? What does it say about you? He's one of Chiang Kai-shek's right-hand mans. Taking an important role in the government of China, and his shrewdness only supported this. Of course, you expected Second Sino-Japanese War. Okay. But he doesn't like us. He's fearful of Yunnan. I think we just get rid of him, honestly, when the time comes, and we'll see. The fight without end. Zhao had wondered, in his great abundance of spare time, as to what the notion of nationalism was, exactly. Especially given at what had happened to China. What remains of the NRA had rarely had a moment to breathe since evacuating however it could. It just so happened as Zhao's cell had been hiding in northern Burma, right alongside the remnants of what remained of the Burma Road. Since 1937, Zhao had spent his time fighting for China's freedom, from Wuhan to Chongqing, and finally to where he sat now. In his cot, in the ad hoc training camp which had been bringing the young men and pumping out soldiers, for that, Zhao could blame few other men than himself. Zhao, fresh batch coming in, 30 minutes. A face had half peeked into the tent, letting out a sigh. Zhao heaved himself off of the bedside and was hit with an overwhelming realization of why he was training, and not the one raiding the Burma Road. Of course, all could do their part for China, one way or another, and Zhao would not stop until China was free, one way or another. Stepping out in front of this disoriented line of confused volunteers, they all seemed to be taking the camp until they noticed Zhao and his chest of iron medals, marching towards the chattering collection of young men. By this time, Zhao had walked up to the end of the line. The crowd was completely silenced. Thinking of his speech, Zhao began to walk down the aisle. Now, it has come to my attention, gentlemen, that you all hope to liberate China. Liberated from Japanese influence. Liberated of its authoritarianism. You all hope to bring liberation to China, and you have joined us in our war against the collaborators to the rats in Japan. For that, I must thank you, for nobody else ever will. And another batch had come around. Okay. So we'll follow that up with the Burma Road in danger. We're going to lose some stability. I mean, our stability is at 14%, which not great. It's not where we want it to be, but it could be worse. We could be deep in the negatives, and we're not. So I will take that as a half success, not a whole success. Like, don't get too crazy on this. It's a partial success at best. So I want to make sure I do not overflow my cup as I pour it out. But not like we're doing anything else right here, right? Like we're all just hanging out, having a great Tuesday night, or maybe it's Wednesday morning where you are. I have no idea. I've got no clue where you are. Options available. Let's go with attrition planning. I think seems good. And desert sites. The distant sites seem to simmer in the waves of the day's heat. The northwestern desert sprawled before him. Dunes jutted out of the ground, taking under the feather-like motion of the air. Zhang Jingguo's unscrewed the cap of his canteen before taking a deep drink. He squinted and raised his binoculars to level with his eyes. On a map unfolded before him, he marked areas where ambushes might be possible. Areas of shade under the sun, and hiding spots that help troops hide from the Japanese patrols. White scouts dispatched by the Mao were probably more effective than he would be. As the son of the late Generalissimo, he didn't have to do any of this. Ma Jian looked at him incredulously when he first requested scout work. However, a man needed time for himself on occasion. Field work was an excuse. He wanted a quiet place to meditate, to contemplate events of the past and the future. The Maos were friendly enough, loyal Chinese nationalists to the core, whose personal emblem was the white sun and a blue sky. Yet he huddled in the camp among the din and the noise of the soldiers returning, departing, living and dying. Jane could not find himself the space needed to sit down and think. Now, alone in the dunes of the sand and the sharp jagged shadows of rock formations, Jan took out a cigarette and lit it. Sighing as he sucked in the flames of the tobacco, he began to think and reminisce. He lost father, lost brother. He was not there for Chongqing, and Wei Guo was nowhere to be found. Thoughts of his brother tugged at Zhang's mind. Had Wei Guo known, the old Generalissimo hid things from the younger of the two siblings, secrets that would surely shatter the brotherhood fostered in the house of Zhang. He shook his head. Zhang would tell Wei Guo when the time was right, assuming, of course, that they would live to see each other again. The truth was hurt, but it hurt little less than living a lie. So is he Wang Zhenwei's son? Or is he Chiang Kai-shek's son? I actually don't know 100%. He's one of the two, but I don't know with certainty. What's everybody else doing? Also, we have two events immediately. Okay. Subdued but unbroken. In a happier time, before the Japanese imperialists had started oppressing China in earnest, men who called themselves the National Protection Army in imitation of Chai were merely the Yunnan provincial contingent of the National Revolutionary Army. Of course, all that went to hell when the Japanese stormed through China, occupying it from Nanjing to Chongqing. Now that the new NPA was subdued but unbroken, is filled with the brim of staunch revanchists opposed to any form of cooperation with the Japanese. Lu Han is aware of their existence. He had known that their hardline mindset was shared by large swaths of Yunnan society, so he plays a part of appeasing them to prevent violent rebellion. If they were to rebel somehow and throw him out, Lu thinks, they probably would fail to achieve much. After all, they would be facing off against a whole sphere were they to revolt. For now, an uneasy peace prevails between the NPA and the authorities. Time will tell what will come as the years pass. If Japan's hegemony begins to destabilize, or if the NPA manages to attach itself to a charismatic leader, that peace may yet come to an end. How are you guys doing, by the way? Focus more on bandits for a second. We'll do some more carrot in the stick. And all this seems okay. Everybody's still losing some points. And another easy victory. It's funny how times changed everything that Zhao came to know. Since the days of Sun Yat-sen, to Japan's invasion of all those years ago, and finally the crush of Chongqing, where Mao and Chiang Kai-shek had died fighting side by side, every other day it seemed that the very fabric of China shifted, and today was no different. Today, the decision was made by the NRA High Command, which apparently existed, to expand its operations across Burma and into Yunnan. To facilitate this, making use of excessive troops pouring in from Yunnan proved far from enough, and all hands were called on deck. It just so happened that Zhao found himself with a pair of those hands. Enough experience in the 40s to get caught with the rank of officer. Is more or less a ceremonial role, however, as officers had rarely engaged in active combat, and all orders had come from the generals and high command, which had just come out of the mothballs. Why his unit was being assigned to the biggest raid of the Burma road since 1947, then, came as something as a surprise to him. Laying in the trees alongside a half dozen of his former trainees, it seemed as though they'd forgotten about spacing. Didn't really bother Zhao. He couldn't be bothered to be bothered, frankly. Besides, so far as Zhao could tell, it wasn't even close. Between the two militias to fight for him, he would prefer his own He would prefer his own 1,000 to 1. That was also an accurate statistic, which is also mildly concerning. Rumbling began to grow over the roads ahead of them, snapping out of his cloud of thoughts. They could already see it, a small convoy of trucks, 2 APCs, and a line of what seemed to be heavily armed refugees, otherwise known as Yunnan's best and brightest. Alright, you boys ready? The glorified partisan chuckled. NRA grows stronger. Well, let's try to have Burma work with us to try to slow the tide of NRA troops. I mean, they like us, 90. I'm assuming that's entirely due to the same faction. It is. Because what are you? You are... Paternalist? What is this? Yeah, you're paternalist. We are despotic. And we want to go ultra-nationalist, because that is going to be the NPA. And they also have a cool flag. The red and black, the red sun. No, it's a black sun on a red. It's on a red sky. I think it's a pretty sweet looking flag. Let's be honest here. We can all admit it. We can all admit it's a cool flag. Okay, election in Uruguay. Congratulations to them. The death of the Queen of the Netherlands. You know, sad for her, but also not that big of a deal for us. How much money are we paying this? Like, how's our debt looking? I've not actually even thought about that. Oh, it's spiked. It has exploded. Italy is 1. I guess we don't have that much money. So even like a 0.1, like $100 million is a ton of cash to be throwing around, which we really do not have. So like we can't really spend more money on the military. Like it just is what it is. We can talk with Burma. I mean, the CPC has no power. They're literally at 0. They actually don't do anything. So let's talk to Burma. See what they can do. Setting a proposal. The Burma Road, China's lifeline when she made her daring yet ill-fated stand against the forces of darkness more than 10 years ago. Well, would have been Yunnan's lifeline today, too, if the traffic lens had not been rendered half deprecated by the conflation of war, congestion by rubble, and the haunting by the National Revolutionary Army remnants running amok along our borders. But it is a lifeline that we have inherited nonetheless, and one we must revitalize for the sake of our mission. An ambitious project, reviving the Burma Road, will take an interregional diplomatic grit of the highest caliber. A special task force of the most capable and experienced diplomats Yunnan has yet to offer has been assembled. Their destination is, of course, Burma. Their objective, to obtain the Burmese government's assistance in restoring the Burma's road pathways back to working order. Both to better arm garrisons along the way against the interlopers, and to get the motorcades of cash, goods, and personal flowing through our mountainous ranges unpestered once more. Unfortunately, said task consisted of a single elderly man who refused the assignment for political reasons. A second, less capable and more inexperienced task force had been assembled, consisting of the sons of prominent government officials. They've been giving a week-long crash course over the finer points of negotiation. A rewritten trade proposal with words derived exclusively from childhood stories and a large amount of cash to bribe any problems that words alone could not resolve. As long as they kept smiling and no one asked too difficult of a question, everything would go smoothly. That seems like a bad plan. And sure, you know what? Well, I mean, it improves the... it also costs money. Shit, I don't have money. The profit and partitioning. The Jianese and Burmese delegations sat across from one another. The subject of the conversation had started at details concerning the Burma Road, which quickly devolved into jokes and idle conversation. And the woman looked at him and she said, "But I'm Japanese!" The room burst in a laugh before gradually subsiding to isolated chuckles. That was really funny, but we should return to the matter at hand. How much can we expect to profit from the Burma Road? Most sober Zion is diplomat, noticing a blank stare at his companions, opened his mouth in utter response. Well, you know, he desperately searched his mind for something, anything about the projected income from the Burmese Road. He really wished he had read the official looking paper sitting on the floor at this hotel room. The way I see it, shouldn't get your hopes up. Moderate benefits, higher political. So okay, then this option will increase the benefits while higher political cost. Moderate benefits. I mean, look, here's the thing, right? We have 81. Fuck it, let's spend 90. I'll spend as much political power as you could possibly want. Oh god. Pre-production units. Okay, let's spend these production units first. Like we're up to 7 now. Like we're making money, and I think we can just go like 5 on civilian factories first. I think that makes sense. Kane response? We should move to discussion the cost then. What should we expect this project to cost us? Well, money, obviously. The Burmese diplomat gave an exasperated sigh. How much money? How much money will it cost? In that moment, the Zionist diplomat tried vainly to appreciate the concept of cost. Things cost money. He knew that, or at least he presumed that. He never actually bought anything. He always just told servants what he wanted, and they would go to the market, where theoretically they exchange money. The cost for the requested item. He hadn't the faintest idea how much those things costed, or what was considered expensive and what was considered cheap. It hurt his head. He just wanted to be done with this boring meeting. You know what? Basically nothing. I could probably pay for it myself. Sure, let's go with that option. We took a really good option. Now we're gonna take a dog shit option. And the Chongqing days. When he came to, he was there again. A field and above, the smell of gunpowder and smoke. He felt his face, warm and whole. His eyes were functioning. His ears were ringing, but they were all right. He pulled his hands from his face and looked at them. Blackened by ash, caked in dust. He blinked. He was alive. Cheng was again in that city, the city of his father's last stand. Ahead, the screams in Japanese, "Banzai!" Then came the suttering response. Then came a suttering response, "Banzai!" It crashed through the narrow streets of Chongqing, bloodied by warfare, like waves frothing against the coast. Up above, columns of smoke held the azure sky. He squinted at the sun and let the rays bore a hole in his eyes, black as an eclipse. They took him to the outskirts of the city, past the ruined walls and the breached gates, caked by drying blood. A shiver went through him. Over the gatehouses, the Japanese had hung the bodies of the officers who had resisted to the bitter end. Among them was his father's. Tears streaked his face, and anger raked his heart. No! He wanted to scream. No! Next to him was the alleged body of Mao. The resemblance was there, the receding hairline, and the Huanese tones in his skin, pale now as death cast over his pale of his body. Didn't matter, he supposed. Alive, no. I guess it didn't matter, he supposed. Alive, Mao was the most tenacious adversary. In death, struck up next to his father, he was a hero like none other. Nausea struck him, and he had to sit down. He perched above a rock, panting. A Japanese officer sided up next to him and offered an apoplectic smile. What an end, the officer said, eh? The mandarin was laced with an accent. He carried notes of the bonsai said before. He gave the officer a look. Pursing his lips, he thought the words. He thought the responses. In the end, he remained silent. Above it all, there was a demonic rattling in the sky, in the walls, everywhere. General, a voice thundered in front of him. General! The guard rattled his prison cell. A message for you. He left a sheet of paper on the floor and walked away. Zhang Wenguo rose up and read the letter. Imprisoning the body does not incarcerate the soul. Okay, so they are Chiang Kai-shek's kids. They are not Wang Jinwei. But I will say that with that, it's going to be a good time for us to end this episode. And I think it's going to be a good time for us to end this